What you are about to discover has nothing to do with willpower, nor with ignoring what you feel, nor with pretending that everything is fine, when, in reality, it is not. It is not about forcing yourself into a fake positive attitude or battling against every negative thought that arises in your mind. The true key to ensuring that nothing and no one can affect you anymore lies in something much deeper, something that most people overlook because they prefer to seek solutions outside of themselves, failing to realize that the only real change happens from within. Perhaps you have wondered why some people, no matter what happens, seem to move through life with an unshakable calm. They face crises, losses, and moments of uncertainty, yet they remain centered. Meanwhile, others seem to be on the verge of collapse, trapped in their own emotions and reactions, even in the most ordinary situations. Is it a matter of luck, personality, or is there a hidden principle that separates those who master their inner world from those who are enslaved by it? This is where most people go wrong. They believe that reality is objective, that things simply happen, and that their emotions are an inevitable consequence of external events. But this is not true. Everything you experience, absolutely everything, is filtered through the way you interpret life, through the beliefs you have carried for years, and through the emotions you have never learned to manage. It is as if you were wearing tinted glasses, coloring everything you see. No matter what is in front of you, you will always perceive it through that filter. And if that filter is distorted by fear, resentment, or guilt, then the world will reflect exactly that. Not because life is unfair, but because you cannot see beyond what is within you. But here is the key that no one has told you. It is not about avoiding pain or escaping difficult emotions. It is not about becoming immune to everything happening around you. It is about transforming the meaning you assign to each experience, about reprogramming the way you perceive reality, and about learning to turn every emotion into a tool for growth rather than a burden that keeps you trapped. The truth is, reality is not imposed upon you. It is interpreted. And when you understand this, when you learn to take control of that interpretation, you discover that you can choose how you respond to any situation. In that moment, you become free. Today, I am going to show you exactly how to do this, not with abstract theories, but with principles that have been used by those who have achieved a deep inner peace that depends on nothing and no one. You will discover how to transform fear into clarity, how to make negative emotions work in your favor instead of against you, and how to reach a state of unshakable serenity no matter what happens in your life. What you are about to understand has the power to change everything, but only if you are willing to look within yourself and question everything you have taken as truth until now. Because in the end, it is not what happens that determines your peace. It is the way you choose to experience it. And when you discover how to transform that process, you will realize that nothing and no one will ever affect you in the same way again. Imagine your life if you could remove those invisible glasses that distort your perception, allowing you to experience the world without the weight of your fears, limiting beliefs, and repressed emotions. The human mind is a complex labyrinth, a space where every thought, every reaction, and every emotion is shaped by deep layers we rarely explore consciously. Carl Jung, the visionary psychoanalyst, understood this better than anyone. He described the psyche as an iceberg. The visible part is the conscious mind, but beneath the surface lies a vast subconscious, a territory where past experiences, traumas, insecurities, and most importantly, our projections onto the world are stored. What we do not make conscious governs us, and everything we ignore within ourselves does not disappear. It manifests in our reality as if it were an inevitable fate. Think about how fear infiltrates your life, often without you realizing it. It disguises itself as doubt when you wonder whether you are good enough to try something new. It hides in procrastination when you delay what you truly desire but are too afraid to fail. It manifests in relationships where you give too much simply because you fear rejection or loneliness. Jung taught us that fear, like any other emotion, is not an enemy. It is a disguised teacher, a signal pointing to something within you that still needs to be acknowledged. But most people, instead of listening, fight against their emotions. They suppress what they feel, convince themselves that they should not be sad, that they should not get angry, that they should be strong all the time. And that is where the problem begins, because what you resist persists. A repressed emotion does not disappear. It becomes a weight you carry daily, a voice whispering in the background of your mind, a blockage that keeps you from moving forward without you even realizing it. Imagine a storm. The wind blows fiercely, the rain falls with intensity, the sky darkens. You try to resist, to push back the wind with your hands, to stop the rain, to contain the force of the storm. But the more you fight it, the more exhausted you become. The storm does not stop because you resist it. It stops when you allow it to pass. This is how the mind works. Every emotion you feel is a passing storm, not a permanent sentence. But most people remain trapped in trying to control what they feel, in the fear of facing what is inside them. Instead of listening to their emotions, they silence them with distractions, work, entertainment, relationships that only provide temporary comfort, continuing to avoid what truly needs to be seen. But what if, instead of fighting your emotions, you simply stopped? What if, instead of ignoring your sadness, you observed it? What if, instead of hiding your fear, you asked what it was trying to tell you? Every emotion carries a hidden message. Sadness often signals that something needs to be released, an attachment that no longer serves you, an expectation that was not met, a part of you that needs to be freed. Fear reveals limiting beliefs, deeply rooted ideas that you are not enough, that you do not deserve what you desire, that failure is something to be avoided at all costs. Anger, which we so often try to suppress, is actually a reminder that your boundaries are being crossed, that something in your environment is not respecting your true self. When you start seeing your emotions not as obstacles, but as guides, something within you changes. And when your inner world changes, your external world follows. Now think of a situation where you normally react automatically. Perhaps an argument with someone close, a conflict at work, a moment when you feel insecure or attacked. Instead of acting on impulse, pause, breathe. Observe the scene as if you were a spectator, someone watching from the outside without attachment. Ask yourself, which part of me is reacting right now? Is it truly the external situation that affects me, or is it something within me that was already there? The answers to these questions can completely change the way you live. Because when you understand that what happens outside only has power over you if something inside allows it, you begin to regain control. Jung spoke of the concept of the silent observer, that part of consciousness that does not get carried away by emotions or external circumstances. That space within you that no matter what happens, remains calm. When you access that part of your mind, you discover that nothing and no one has the power to affect you unless you grant them that power. That every time something destabilizes you, it is not because the world is unfair or because people hurt you. It is because there is something within you that still needs to be worked on. And there lies the true key to achieving unshakable peace. Not in changing the external world, but in transforming how you experience it. When you master this, storms no longer scare you because you understand they are temporary and that behind each one there is an opportunity to grow. And if you analyze your thoughts deeply, you will notice that many of them are not even yours. They were absorbed at some point in your life and unknowingly adopted as absolute truths. Here's the key. You don't have to keep holding on to it. Imagine for a moment that starting today, you decide to change the narrative. Instead of repeating to yourself that you are not enough, you begin to integrate the idea that you have always been capable, that the only thing that has held you back is the story you've told yourself. Carl Jung taught us that the unconscious mind does not distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. It simply responds to the programming we feed it. If you start nourishing your mind with beliefs that empower you, your external reality will inevitably begin to reflect that change. Now, let's put this into a real-life context. Think of someone who has spent their entire life in constant fear of not being loved. Maybe they learned early on that they had to earn love through effort, pleasing everyone, sacrificing their own well-being in exchange for external validation. And now, as an adult, they live with the deep-seated feeling that they are never enough, that they must keep trying harder to avoid rejection. How can they break this cycle? The first step is to see it clearly. Jung spoke of shadow integration as the act of bringing to light what has been hidden within us. When this person realizes they have been trapped in a pattern of fear of rejection, fear of not being worthy, they begin to reclaim their power. They come to understand that their worth is not defined by the validation of others, but by how they perceive themselves. And then, something shifts. They start setting boundaries. They learn to say no without guilt. They begin to prioritize themselves without the fear of abandonment. And the most incredible thing, as they change, the people around them change too. They are no longer sought after just for what they give, but for who they truly are. And that is when the cycle breaks. Now consider another case. Someone who has always believed that failure is humiliating. Every time they try something new and don't achieve the expected result, they punish themselves with self-destructive thoughts. They compare themselves to others, feeling stuck, believing the world is placing insurmountable obstacles in their path. But what happens when they begin to see failure not as a shameful defeat, but as an inevitable part of the process? When they understand that every mistake is a disguised teacher, their entire relationship with life changes. Jung once said, "Life does not happen to you, it happens through you." If this person starts interpreting every fall as an opportunity to learn rather than as a punishment, their fear dissolves. They are no longer afraid to try again because they understand that their worth is not tied to the outcome, but to the growth each attempt allows them to achieve. What many people don't realize is that every thought we nurture is a seed. If you water the seeds of fear, resentment, or doubt every day, they will eventually grow into the trees that dominate your life. But if instead you choose to plant seeds of confidence, inner peace, and self-belief, your reality will transform in a radical way. And this isn't just an abstract concept, it's something you can experience immediately. The next time a limiting thought enters your mind, don't automatically accept it as truth. Observe it, question it, challenge it. Ask yourself whether it truly belongs to you, or if it is merely an echo of the past, something you can choose to let go of. And when you do, you'll realize that the only power those thoughts had over you was the power you yourself had given them. Here's the most revealing part of all this. You don't need the world to change for you to experience a different reality. All you need is to change the way you relate to what happens. A person who sees life as a series of obstacles and tragedies will continue to find proof of that belief at every turn. But someone who decides to see life as an opportunity for growth, as a space where every situation carries a lesson, will begin to experience the world in a completely different way. Jung also said, "What you resist persists." This means that the more you fight against life with struggle and fear, the more you will encounter exactly what you are trying to avoid. But if you learn to flow with life, if you open yourself to the possibility that every experience has something to offer, tension disappears. Now imagine the power of living this way, without fear of failure, because you know it does not define you. Without fear of others' opinions, because you've understood that the only thing that truly matters is what you think of yourself. Without fear of uncertainty, because you trust that no matter what life brings, you will have the ability to handle it. This is true freedom. Not a freedom that depends on circumstances, but one that is born within you. Because when you free yourself from the invisible chains your mind has imposed on you, nothing and no one can imprison you again. And in that moment, you discover that the peace you've always sought was never outside of you. It was within, waiting to be recognized. When we do not face our shadows, they manifest in ways we fail to recognize. Anxiety, constant conflicts, repetitive patterns that seem to play out over and over. But when we choose to look directly at what we have avoided, we discover that it is not our enemy. It is a part of us that needs to be understood. Think about a fear you've carried for years. Maybe it's the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, or the fear of not being enough. Every time you try to step outside your comfort zone, that fear emerges, whispering reasons why you shouldn't even try. But have you ever stopped to ask it where it comes from? To whom does that voice truly belong? Maybe it stems from an experience in childhood. Maybe it echoes words from someone you once admired. But here's the key. That voice is not you. It is merely an echo from the past, repeating itself in your mind. And here is where you can do something different. Instead of fighting against that fear or trying to ignore it, pause for a moment and listen. Ask yourself, what is this fear trying to teach me? Maybe it's showing you that you need to develop more confidence in yourself. Maybe it's teaching you that you must learn to validate your own worth without depending on external opinions. Or perhaps it's telling you that it's time to stop running and face what you truly want. When, instead of rejecting your emotions, you choose to explore them, fear loses its grip on you. You stop being a puppet of your past and become the architect of your present. Let's apply this to a real scenario. Imagine you're in an important conversation, maybe with a boss, a business partner, or someone who means a lot to you. Before speaking, you feel anxiety rising. Your mind fills with doubts, and your body tenses. Before, you might have tried to suppress those emotions, ignore them, or let them control you. But this time, you do something different. You take a deep breath. You acknowledge the emotion without letting it overpower you. You ask yourself, what part of me is feeling this? What story am I telling myself right now? And suddenly, you realize that the fear is not coming from the current situation. It is an old pattern resurfacing. In that moment, instead of reacting from insecurity, you choose to respond from clarity. You speak with confidence, with presence, because you are no longer acting from an old wound, but from your most conscious self. This is how transformation begins. And when you stop fighting against yourself, when you embrace every part of you, you step into a life that is truly yours. When you learn to see reality through a different lens, it's not about pretending that everything is fine, but rather about learning to be at peace, even when everything around you seems chaotic. It's about realizing that the power you've been searching for outside of yourself has always been within you, waiting to be reclaimed. And once you finally see this truth, nothing and no one can affect you in the same way ever again, because you've come to understand that true freedom is not about controlling the world, but about freeing yourself from the illusion that you need to do so. Imagine waking up one morning feeling exhausted. But this exhaustion isn't because you didn't get enough sleep. It's deeper than that. It's the weight of something you've been carrying inside you, an emotional burden that refuses to be ignored. Perhaps it's a conversation that didn't go the way you hoped. Maybe it's a criticism someone made about you, words that linger in your mind longer than they should. Or perhaps it's a mistake you made, something you can't seem to forgive yourself for, a regret that keeps resurfacing. You find yourself wondering, why, despite all my efforts, do other people's opinions still affect me so much? Why do I keep replaying moments in my head that I should have already moved past? The answer isn't out there. It's not about what others did or said. It's about how you interpreted their words, how your mind constructed a story around the event and decided to make it part of your identity. This is the core issue for most people. We believe that the cause of our suffering exists outside of us, in circumstances, in people, in the luck we were given. But Carl Jung made it clear, everything that disturbs you in the external world is actually a reflection of something within you that has yet to heal. It's not the criticism itself that hurts. It's the part of you that still doubts your own worth. It's not other people's indifference that frustrates you. It's your own unmet need for validation that continues to demand attention. And until you address the root of what's affecting you, you will remain trapped in the same cycles, repeating the same patterns over and over again. Now, imagine that one day you choose to do something different. Instead of reacting impulsively when something upsets you, you pause for a moment. You take a deep breath, and rather than letting anger or sadness consume you, you ask yourself, why does this affect me so much? What part of me is feeling this reaction? As you do this, you start to see the truth. The problem was never the other person, nor the situation itself. The real issue was the story you created around it. You realize that the fear of rejection you feel today didn't start today. It began years ago when you first learned to associate acceptance with your sense of self-worth. You recognize that the guilt you carry isn't truly yours. It's a habit you developed because at some point you believed that making mistakes meant you weren't good enough. And this is where you take back control. Instead of being overwhelmed by emotions, you ask yourself, if this emotion were a message, what would it be telling me? Perhaps it's telling you that you need to trust yourself more, that it's time to stop seeking validation from the outside world and start giving it to yourself. Maybe it's showing you that you need to stop living according to other people's expectations and start building your own truth. The key isn't what you feel, it's what you do with those feelings. And in that moment, instead of feeding your emotions with repetitive thoughts, you choose to act from a different place. Now picture another scenario. You're in the middle of a heated argument with someone close to you. The words exchanged are becoming more aggressive. Emotions are running high. In the past, you would have fallen into the same trap, raising your voice, letting anger take control. But this time, you remember something Jung said about the shadow self. What irritates us most in others is a reflection of something we haven't yet integrated within ourselves. Instead of matching their anger, you pause and ask yourself, what part of me is reacting to this? Is this person truly making me feel this way? Or is there something deeper at play? And in that instant, instead of being a prisoner of your emotions, you become their master. You take control, not by suppressing what you feel, but by choosing how you respond. This seemingly small shift in perspective has a profound impact on your life. You stop feeling like a victim of your circumstances, and instead, you begin to see every emotion, every conflict, every challenge as an opportunity to understand yourself better. You no longer react out of fear or insecurity. Instead, you respond from a place of awareness, understanding that nothing and no one can truly affect you unless you allow it. And when you reach this point, when you start acting from consciousness rather than reaction, you make a powerful discovery. Most of the problems that once seemed overwhelming begin to fade away, not because the world has changed, but because you are now seeing it through different eyes. This is where the most powerful concept of all comes in: emotional responsibility. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That means that every emotion you experience, every thought that crosses your mind, every reaction you have to the world around you is an opportunity to take control of your own story. It's not about denying what you feel. It's about asking yourself, how can I transform this into something that strengthens me? Now think about a recent moment when you felt hurt by someone. Maybe someone ignored you when you expected their attention. Maybe someone said something that you took as an attack. Instead of getting stuck in the narrative of injustice, try this. Close your eyes and visualize that person, not as an enemy, but as an unintentional teacher who has come into your life to reveal something about yourself. Ask yourself, what part of me created this experience? How can I use this to grow stronger? And as you do, you begin to realize something profound. The real lesson isn't about them. It's about you. You understand that you don't need external validation to feel worthy, that you don't need anyone to change for you to be at peace, that everything you've been searching for outside has always been within you. This is the moment when the power returns to you, when you stop blaming others for how you feel and start seeing every emotion as a message, an opportunity to evolve. This is when you understand that peace is not something you find, it's something you cultivate, that the only person who can define who you are and how you feel is you. And in that moment, the world loses its hold over you, because for the first time, you are in control. You are sending a new signal to your mind, telling it that the old patterns of anxiety, insecurity, or anger are no longer the only option. Every small, conscious decision you make is like rewriting the code in your mind, replacing limiting beliefs with new ones that set you free. But this is where many people get stuck. They want to change, yet they cling to the same stories about themselves. They keep saying, "I'm just a sensitive person. I always get affected by what others say. I can't control my emotions." Do you see how these statements become an identity? As long as you define yourself this way, you will keep repeating the same cycles. But what if you started questioning them? What if, every time you thought, "I'm too emotional," you paused and asked yourself, "Is this really true? Or is it just something I've repeated so many times that I've come to believe it?" This is the real work. Changing the internal narrative. It's not just about empty affirmations. It's about creating new experiences that reinforce real transformation. Jung spoke of the importance of integration, of bringing into the light what has always remained in the shadows. And that means that instead of running from your pain, you sit with it, you observe it, and instead of rejecting it, you accept it, not as your fate, but as part of your story. Because in the end, words only have the power you give them. If someone tells you you'll never succeed, those words can only hurt you if a part of you fears they might be true. But if you've done the inner work, if you've built your own confidence, those words become nothing more than background noise, powerless, weightless. But here lies the key question. How do you reach a point where nothing affects you? It is not by repressing emotions or convincing yourself otherwise. This only creates a fragile shield that shatters at the slightest impact. True power lies in flexibility, in the ability to feel everything without letting anything control you. Carl Jung once said that real freedom comes when you stop identifying with every passing thought and fleeting emotion. When you learn to observe your feelings without attachment, without allowing them to define who you are, you unlock a new level of self-awareness. Let's consider an example. Perhaps you've often felt that people take advantage of you, that you give too much and receive too little in return. In the past, this would frustrate you, making you feel used and powerless. But now, instead of remaining trapped in the victim's role, you decide to change the dynamic. You ask yourself, where am I failing to establish boundaries? Why do I struggle to say no? Little by little, you start setting clear rules, not from anger, but from self-respect. You realize that when you respect yourself, others begin to do the same. When you stop yielding out of fear of losing people, you actually gain something far more valuable: your peace. This is the point many never reach, because they continue waiting for the world to change first. They expect people to be kinder, circumstances to be more favorable, and life to stop testing them. But the truth is, real change always starts from within. And when you change, the entire world responds to this new version of you. It's like tuning a radio to a new frequency. When you stop broadcasting fear, insecurity, or frustration, you begin to attract experiences that resonate with your new energy. Suddenly, what once seemed impossible, serenity, confidence, and clarity, becomes your natural state. Now imagine for a moment what your life would be like if nothing and no one could shake your inner balance. If every time someone tried to drag you into conflict, you remained unshaken. If each time a difficult situation arose, instead of reacting impulsively, you could observe it with calm detachment. If every emotion that surfaced was just a passing wave, in the vast ocean of your consciousness, incapable of destabilizing you. That peace you envision is not an unattainable ideal. It is a real possibility. But only if you commit to this process, only if you decide to stop giving power to external factors and start building an internal fortress that nothing and no one can tear down. And when you do, when you truly integrate this change, you'll notice something incredible. The world will stop feeling like a hostile place. People will no longer have the power to hurt you. The situations that once caused you anxiety will lose their grip on you because you will no longer see them through the same fearful lens. You will finally be in control, and once you taste this freedom, you will never again allow anything or anyone to take your peace away. Because when you grant yourself the permission to prioritize your well-being without guilt, everything in your life begins to align naturally. Jung spoke about the importance of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, free from the external influences that have conditioned you. And this begins with the courage to listen to yourself in a world that constantly tells you what you should feel, think, or do. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you ignored what you truly wanted out of fear of disappointing someone else? How many times have you suppressed an emotion because you were taught that feeling too much is a sign of weakness? How often have you forced yourself to act a certain way just to fit in? Each time you've done this, without realizing it, you have given more power to the external world over your own inner peace. The real problem is not that the world tries to influence you, because it always will, but rather that you distance yourself from your true self just to meet others' expectations. This is where the practice of inner silence becomes essential. Jung believed that the mind is constantly filled with noise, an internal dialogue we rarely question. But what would happen if you took just a moment each day to simply be with yourself, without distractions, without your phone, without social media, without the need to do anything, just you and your presence? In those moments, you begin to notice things that previously went unnoticed. You become aware of what you truly feel, what you need to change, and what your intuition has been trying to tell you all along. Imagine a situation where someone makes a hurtful comment. In the past, you would have reacted instantly, feeling as if those words had pierced through you like an arrow. But now, instead of allowing that comment to dictate your emotional state, you take a deep breath and ask yourself, do I really need to take this personally? Or does this say more about the other person than it does about me? In that moment, you feel something new, detachment, not because you don't care, but because you finally understood that what others say or do has no power to define you. This level of clarity is not achieved overnight. It is a practice, a commitment to return, again and again, to the role of the observer rather than getting caught in the waves of every emotion. And the most fascinating thing is that when you begin to live this way, the external world also changes. Situations that once seemed unbearable lose their emotional charge. People who used to trigger you no longer have that power. And most importantly, you start experiencing a lightness you never thought possible. But there's one more thing you need to know. This process does not mean you will never feel pain, frustration, or sadness again. The difference is that now you won't get stuck in those emotions. You'll learn to see them as temporary visitors rather than absolute truths, like waves in the ocean, intense for a moment, but always fleeting. Instead of fighting the current, You simply let it pass, trusting that on the other side of the storm, there will always be calm. So, what can you do right now to start building that inner strength? First, question yourself. Every time you feel an intense emotion, instead of reacting automatically, ask yourself a simple question. What part of me is being triggered right now? Not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself better. Then, allow the emotion to be there without trying to suppress or change it. Breathe through it, observe it, and you will notice how, little by little, it loses its grip on you. And finally, remember this. Inner peace is not something you find in external circumstances, nor in the validation of others. It is something you build within yourself with every choice, every thought, every moment in which you decide that nothing and no one can take away the calm you have worked so hard to cultivate. That is true power. And once you discover it, the world will never look the same again. If you enjoyed this content and want to continue learning more about these fascinating topics, please subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and share this video with your friends. Together, we can continue exploring and discovering more knowledge that can transform our lives. Don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts and suggestions. See you in the next video. Let's say it without sugarcoating it, but without raising our voice. What you're about to hear isn't a scream, it's a whisper that pierces deeper than any noise ever could. Don't open your eyes just yet. Don't look around searching for answers. Look within, because right there, in the darkest corner of your mind, the place no one enters, the place you yourself fear to peek into, that's where this story begins. There, hidden beneath layers of appearances and silence, echoes a single question you've been avoiding for far too long. Who are you when they strip away the mask of composure? When that forced smile finally collapses? When tension bursts inside you like a silent explosion and no one even notices? What remains of you? Have you lived your life believing that control is strength? That calm is something you learn from self-help books or pretty quotes on social media? If so, you've been misled. True control isn't something you study or rehearse. It awakens. It reveals itself in the moments that test your very core. And for many, it never does, because keeping calm isn't a technique. It's a trial. It's standing at the edge of the abyss, looking straight into the chaos without blinking. And here's the strange part. You have no idea how often you've been right on that edge. You've walked the razor's edge of your own sanity more times than you could count, completely unaware. It's those arguments that don't end in shouting, but in endless distances. It's those loaded glances, heavy with restrained rage. It's the silence, where everything is being said, and yet nothing is spoken. Carl Jung didn't speak of calm as a simple virtue. To him, it was a sign, an echo from the soul that has embraced its own shadow. Because while you run from conflict, there's a part of you that feeds it, that craves it. And if I'm being honest, that part of you isn't asleep. It's wide awake, very awake, but you pretend. You pretend to be blind, deaf, neutral. You convince yourself that nothing touches you, that everything can be reasoned, that you're an island in the middle of the storm. But Jung knew no one is an island. We are all battlefields, and right now, you're losing the war without even realizing it. Do you want to know why you explode when someone interrupts you? Why you break into a cold sweat at the slightest criticism even though you're smiling. Why your thoughts turn into blades when someone makes you feel small. It's because you don't know how to be at peace with yourself. Because you confuse calm with repression. Because you've spent years silencing your shadow instead of integrating it. And what you repress doesn't disappear. It grows stronger, more dangerous, more desperate to be seen. This video isn't here to teach you how to breathe deeply, or to repeat mantras, or to sip green tea while imagining that the universe is conspiring in your favor. This video is a mirror, one of those that doesn't distort what it reflects, one that shows you the part of yourself that can't be posted on Instagram, the part that trembles, that burns, that swallows words, tasting like blood. Do you really want to remain calm in the face of confrontation? Then prepare to die, not physically, but psychologically, because you'll have to kill that version of yourself that gets dragged around by rage disguised as reason. That version that defends itself by attacking, that screams so it doesn't get devoured, that constantly justifies itself because it doesn't know how to stay silent. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And do you know what your fate is if you do nothing? To always react like an animal, like a victim of your most primal instincts. True power doesn't lie in defeating others. It lies in not letting others defeat you from within. This is not just another video about self-esteem. It's not another piece of content meant to make you feel good for 5 minutes, only to explode again on the ones you love the most. This is a descent, and not everyone comes back from it. Because not everyone is willing to face what they carry inside. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is tired. Tired of pretending everything is fine. Tired of making excuses. Tired of losing control precisely when you need it the most. Today, you're not stepping into the labyrinth because I say so. You're stepping in because your soul is already there, wandering, calling out for you to finally show up and face it. So don't look away. Don't try to calm yourself. Don't breathe deeply in an attempt to soothe the discomfort. Do the exact opposite. Let yourself feel the vertigo, the tension, the uneasiness pressing on your chest, because that very discomfort is the doorway. And whether you like it or not, you're about to walk through it. Are you ready to meet the version of yourself that shows up when stillness is the only thing standing between you and the abyss? Don't leave just yet. If you think that the real danger lies in your anger, then you're still missing the core of the problem. Anger is just the tip of the iceberg. The real fire, the one that burns everything down, begins long before you raise your voice. It begins in silence, in those moments when you betray yourself quietly, when you say, "It's fine," even though every part of you is screaming that it's not. When you say yes to things you don't want, when you compromise your boundaries, when you swallow your truth again and again, once, twice, 100 times, until that false calmness turns into a ticking time bomb that no one sees coming. And then when the explosion happens, they ask you, why did you lash out like that? Why did you overreact? Why did you say something so out of line? But what no one ever asks is, how long had you been pretending everything was okay? Can you see it now? The people who boast the most about having self-control are often just one small trigger away from collapsing. Because their calm is a mask, a carefully constructed illusion. And the most dangerous thing about a mask is that it even fools the one who's wearing it. Carl Jung once said, "The self is a necessary mask," but he also warned that if you identify too closely with that mask, You lose touch with who you are underneath. And that's exactly what happens every time you choose calmness, not as a triumph, but as a disguise. Do you understand now? This isn't about suppressing your emotions. This is about integrating them. This is about realizing that your anger, your fear, your impulsive urges, they're not enemies, they're messengers. They are fractured parts of you that have been silenced, overlooked, neglected. People don't lose control during confrontation because they're weak. They lose control because they're carrying an unresolved war inside of them, a war that no one on the outside can see. And often, it's a war they themselves have stopped listening to. And here's a truth that may sting. Most of your confrontations aren't with others. They're with yourself. Every time you stay silent when you want to speak. Every time you agree to something that wounds you. Every time you smile just to keep the peace. You're not avoiding conflict, you're creating it inside yourself. And those are the confrontations that do the most damage because they're invisible. No one sees them, but you feel them, you carry them. And one day, without knowing how or why, you find yourself irritated by everything. You don't understand why small things make you explode, why you're exhausted, resentful, anxious. You say you want peace? Start there. Stop running from your small internal wars. Face them. Because what you refuse to face doesn't disappear. It rots. And what rots eventually erupts in the worst ways. And now we come to something else no one likes to admit. There's always that one person. That one type of person who pushes your buttons like no one else. That one personality that triggers your ugliest shadows, your deepest rage, your worst instincts. That's not a coincidence. That person is a mirror. They reflect something inside you that you haven't resolved yet. It's not really about them. It's about what they awaken in you. Maybe they represent the voice that shamed you as a child, the authority that silenced you, the rejection that broke you, the betrayal you never healed from. Maybe they act freely in the way you've never allowed yourself to. Maybe they expose the boundaries you've never learned to defend. Either way, they show you what you still haven't made peace with. And that's why you react with such intensity. Not because they're powerful, but because they touch a wound that's still open. And that's the invitation here. Not to keep pretending you're fine. Not to chase an artificial version of calm. But to walk into the fire of your own truth. To confront the parts of you that are tired of being ignored. Because real peace doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from integration, from listening to what hurts, from giving space to what you feel, from understanding that your emotions aren't flaws, they're signals, they're sacred messengers guiding you back to yourself. So stay with the discomfort, stay with the tension. Let it teach you, let it guide you. Because that's where the healing begins, not in the silence, but in the courage to finally break it. It might be someone who dominates you, who makes you feel small, or someone who manipulates you, who makes you doubt yourself. Pay close attention. Every confrontation that shakes your balance is a mirror, and the more uncomfortable it makes you, the more it reveals a part of yourself that you refuse to face. Don't resist that discomfort. Use it. Follow the thread. Trace it back to its origin. Because the real enemy is never the other person. The real enemy is the echo that person activates inside you. Now let me ask you something. How many times have you won an argument only to feel empty afterward? How many times have you had the final word and yet still lost your peace of mind? That's what happens when you walk into a confrontation without truly knowing yourself. It's not a battle of ideas. It's a clash of wounded egos, yours and theirs. And in that kind of war, even the winner loses. Because true calm cannot be imposed. It cannot be negotiated. It cannot be performed. It can only be reached. And you reach it only when you no longer feel the need to prove anything. When you've made peace with the darkest corners of yourself. Let's talk about silence now. But not the superficial kind of silence. The real one, the internal one. Silence that has nothing to do with keeping your mouth shut, and everything to do with not reacting internally. Because true calm doesn't start on your lips. It starts in your judgment. Do you know how hard it is to witness a provocation and not immediately assign it a meaning? To face someone's aggression and not interpret it as a personal attack? That's where true strength is forged. When you learn to create space between what happens and how you choose to feel about it, that space, that brief second of separation, is where your freedom lives. And yes, it's difficult. You've been trained to react, not to respond. You live in a culture that glorifies speed, clever comebacks, and sharp retorts. But the sharpest mind is not the one that speaks first. It's the one that doesn't rush, the one that doesn't fall into the trap laid by others. Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." And waking up hurts, because you begin to see everything you used to avoid. You see your pride. You see your need to always be right. You see your old wound, the one that cries out every time you feel unheard. You begin to notice the root of your anxiety hiding in every argument. But you also start to see something more, something you can actually choose. And that choice, that conscious decision not to feed the storm, that is the closest thing to real power. Do you want proof that you're growing? Look at how you react when someone falsely accuses you, when someone misinterprets you, when someone mocks you. Do you immediately jump to your own defense? Do you raise your voice so that your truth can be heard? Or can you remain grounded without needing to convince anyone of anything? That's where your growth is measured, not by what you achieve, but by what you no longer feel the need to prove. And now, let's go deeper into another shadowy place: your need to stay calm. So often, that calm doesn't come from wisdom. It comes from fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of seeming weak, fear of not being enough. And so you become an actor, a flawless performer of serenity. But inside, you're screaming. What would happen if you stopped performing? If, for the first time, you stopped trying to prove anything? If you simply allowed yourself to feel exactly what you feel and observe it without judgment? Not to control it, but to understand it, to name it. Because the problem is not feeling anger. The problem is not knowing what to do with it. This is the core of it all. Emotional management is not about repression, nor is it about spilling everything without filter. It's about understanding. And in order to understand yourself, you must stop lying to yourself. You must stop saying you're fine when you're not. You must stop using calmness as an excuse to avoid the conflicts you actually need to face. Not every confrontation is bad. Some are essential. Some actually save you. Some are the only way to set boundaries. And boundaries, whether people like them or not, are one of the purest forms of self-love. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't think of staying calm like it's some performance for the outside world. Ask yourself, is my calm a way of avoiding myself, or is it a way of affirming myself? Because there's a calm that is submission, and another that is mastery. And only you can decide which one you're practicing. And no, we're not done yet. There's something else. Something no one really tells you. Keeping your composure in the middle of confrontation isn't always about having the right words. Sometimes it's about knowing when to leave. Because there are battles that are never meant to be won by fighting. They're won by walking away. Not because you're running, but because you've grown. Because you finally realized that not every conflict deserves your energy. Some confrontations exist for one reason only: to steal your presence. And when you learn how to walk away without drama, you're not losing. You're choosing to protect your essence. And you know what's the most powerful part of all this? That some people will mistake your calm for weakness until they realize you're the only one in the room who doesn't need to raise their voice to own the space. This isn't about applause. This isn't about being better than anyone else. This is about real self-control. And real self-control isn't rigidity. It's conscious flexibility. It's moving like water, strong but fluid, grounded but flowing. Because like Bruce Lee said, be water, my friend. And no, that wasn't a marketing line. That was a warning. Those who don't learn how to flow, break. But you didn't come here to break. You came here to wake up. And if you're still listening, that's not by accident. Something in you chose to stay. Not out of boredom, not out of habit, but because this message touched a layer most people avoid. We're no longer talking about just staying calm. We're talking about transforming your entire existence. Because calm, that's just the surface. What you're really learning is to not sell your soul, to not trade your inner peace for the cheap hit of a reactive emotion. You're training the invisible muscle of awareness, the one no one sees, but it holds everything together. And here comes the most powerful part. When you change the way you respond to conflict, conflict changes the way it shows up in your life. It's almost like the universe takes notice, like the battles begin to avoid you, not because you're afraid, but because you're no longer fuel for chaos. The fire can't burn what no longer ignites. Will there still be confrontation? Absolutely. But now, you won't be available to be dragged into it. Not because you think you're superior, but because you know yourself more deeply. Because you've gone into your own darkness and come back with something that can't be bought, can't be acted, and can't be faked. Presence. And that changes everything. Calm is not the destination. It's a sign that you've awakened, that you no longer react from your wounds, but from your choices, that you don't move from fear anymore, but from direction. And do you know what that makes you? Dangerous. Dangerous to manipulators, dangerous to chaos seekers, dangerous to those who thrive on noise. Because now you are silence that cuts, presence that weighs heavy, peace that makes others uncomfortable. When someone who's integrated their shadow sits across from you and doesn't flinch, something inside others starts to tremble. They don't know why, but they feel it. Because that calm isn't weakness. It's the echo of someone who has died and come back, wiser, deeper, untouchable. So here's the ending. If something like this can even have an end, don't stay calm for others. Don't do it to keep things easy. Don't do it to look strong. Do it for you. Because you no longer need to explode to feel alive. Because you no longer need to win to feel worthy. Because you no longer need to be right to be at peace. And if someone doesn't understand that, let them go. Not everyone is ready for the kind of serenity that confronts and disarms. If this message resonated with you, don't just leave like it meant nothing. This channel isn't for people who just want feel-good fluff. This is for those ready to leave behind the weak, programmed, tamed version of themselves and step fully into transformation. Subscribe now if you're ready to keep digging into truths that might be uncomfortable, but will set you free. And hit the notification bell, because what's coming next, you won't want to miss. And if you want to leave a mark, comment below. Silence is my armor. Awareness is my sword. That's how I'll know you made it all the way here. That you're not just one more voice in the crowd. And now, yes, I'm signing off, but not with a goodbye. That'd be too predictable. I'm leaving you with a warning. From today on, be careful what you think right before you react. Because now, you know. Now, you've seen it. And once you've seen it, there's no going back. The real confrontation doesn't happen out there. It happens within. And once that starts, the calm you conquer is irreversible. I'll see you when no one else dares to look. In the shadow, at the edge, in the depth. Until next time. Fear is perhaps the most fundamental and primitive emotion we experience as human beings. It is deeply ingrained in the very fabric of our brains, specifically within the amygdala, that ancient structure of our neural system that has ensured our survival as a species for millennia. From an evolutionary perspective, fear was absolutely essential. It alerted us to predators, kept us away from dangerous heights, and made us cautious about the unknown. For thousands of years, fear was our silent ally, the unseen guardian whispering in our ears, "Be careful, this is not safe." But here's where the paradox begins. What once protected us has now become our prison. In the modern world, where we rarely face immediate physical threats, fear has mutated. It no longer safeguards us from wild beasts or physical danger. Instead, it shields us from growth, from expansion, from new experiences, and from vulnerability itself. And this is where the first great contradiction arises. That which evolved to keep us alive is now preventing us from truly living. Yet this modern fear is not as straightforward as it seems. It operates on much subtler and more complex levels. It functions almost like a form of reverse faith. Think about it. Fear, at its core, is a belief, a deeply held certainty in something undesirable happening. It is believing with absolute conviction that something bad will come to pass, just as others believe in their dreams and aspirations. This is a revelation that can change everything. Fear and positive manifestation operate under the same universal principles, only in opposite directions. When we delve into the energetic nature of reality, we understand that everything around us is composed of vibrational fields. Our thoughts, and even more powerfully, our emotions, emit specific frequencies that interact with the universal energetic field. And fear, being one of the most intense emotions we can experience, acts as a powerful beacon of attraction. It is an amplifier, broadcasting signals that shape our reality, whether we are conscious of it or not. The journey we are about to embark on together is not just about overcoming or suppressing fear. That would be a superficial approach. Instead, we are going to explore the fundamental secret to transforming our relationship with fear, how to transmute it into a constructive force, and more importantly, how to transcend it completely. Once we grasp the true nature of fear, we will unlock a level of inner freedom that many people don't even realize is possible. Get ready for a transformational experience, one that will permanently shift the way you perceive not just fear, but reality itself. Because the true key to living without fear is not found in fighting against it. It is found in understanding its deepest nature and our connection to the universe. Once we embrace this essential understanding, a world of unlimited possibilities will unfold before us. To truly free ourselves from fear, we must first explore its origins. Fear, this ancient companion of our existence, has roots that stretch back to the very dawn of human evolution. It emerged as a defense mechanism, a built-in alarm system that kept our ancestors alive in a world filled with tangible dangers. When a predator lurked nearby or a storm threatened destruction, fear would instantly trigger our fight-or-flight response, preparing our bodies for immediate survival. This system worked brilliantly for millennia. The problem arises when we carry this same mechanism into the modern world, a world where life-threatening dangers are rare, yet the fear response remains intact. The primitive mind, designed to react to lions and natural disasters, does not distinguish between a physical predator and the anxiety of public speaking, between an actual abyss and the risk of starting a new business. What was once a protector has now become a jailer, keeping us confined within artificial comfort zones. One of the most fascinating aspects of fear is its nature as inverted faith. Think about it for a moment. When you fear something intensely, what are you really doing? You are placing your faith, your absolute belief, in the possibility of something undesirable manifesting. You are investing energy, attention, and emotion into a negative outcome, reinforcing its presence in your reality. This is the same mechanism through which positive manifestation works. The only difference is the direction in which it operates. Whether we are manifesting our greatest dreams or our deepest anxieties, the universal principles remain the same. Energy follows focus. When we experience fear, our energetic field vibrates at a specific frequency. And according to universal laws, the universe does not differentiate between fear and positive desire. It simply responds to the intensity and clarity of fear is perhaps the most fundamental and primitive emotion we experience as human beings. It is deeply ingrained in the very fabric of our brains, specifically within the amygdala, that ancient structure of our neural system that has ensured our survival as a species for millennia. From an evolutionary perspective, fear was absolutely essential. It alerted us to predators, kept us away from dangerous heights, and made us cautious about the unknown. For thousands of years, fear was our silent ally, the unseen guardian whispering in our ears, "Be careful, this is not safe." But here's where the paradox begins. What once protected us has now become our prison. In the modern world, where we rarely face immediate physical threats, fear has mutated. It no longer safeguards us from wild beasts or physical danger. Instead, it shields us from growth, from expansion, from new experiences, and from vulnerability itself. And this is where the first great contradiction arises. That which evolved to keep us alive is now preventing us from truly living. Yet this modern fear is not as straightforward as it seems. It operates on much subtler and more complex levels. It functions almost like a form of reverse faith. Think about it. Fear, at its core, is a belief, a deeply held certainty in something undesirable happening. It is believing with absolute conviction that something bad will come to pass, just as others believe in their dreams and aspirations. This is a revelation that can change everything. Fear and positive manifestation operate under the same universal principles, only in opposite directions. When we delve into the energetic nature of reality, we understand that everything around us is composed of vibrational fields. Our thoughts, and even more powerfully, our emotions, emit specific frequencies that interact with the universal energetic field. And fear, being one of the most intense emotions we can experience, acts as a powerful beacon of attraction. It is an amplifier, broadcasting signals that shape our reality, whether we are conscious of it or not. The journey we are about to embark on together is not just about overcoming or suppressing fear. That would be a superficial approach. Instead, we are going to explore the fundamental secret to transforming our relationship with fear, how to transmute it into a constructive force, and more importantly, how to transcend it completely. Once we grasp the true nature of fear, we will unlock a level of inner freedom that many people don't even realize is possible. Get ready for a transformational experience, one that will permanently shift the way you perceive not just fear, but reality itself. Because the true key to living without fear is not found in fighting against it. It is found in understanding its deepest nature and our connection to the universe. Once we embrace this essential understanding, a world of unlimited possibilities will unfold before us. To truly free ourselves from fear, we must first explore its origins. Fear, this ancient companion of our existence, has roots that stretch back to the very dawn of human evolution. It emerged as a defense mechanism, a built-in alarm system that kept our ancestors alive in a world filled with tangible dangers. When a predator lurked nearby or a storm threatened destruction, fear would instantly trigger our fight-or-flight response, preparing our bodies for immediate survival. This system worked brilliantly for millennia. The problem arises when we carry this same mechanism into the modern world, a world where life-threatening dangers are rare, yet the fear response remains intact. The primitive mind, designed to react to lions and natural disasters, does not distinguish between a physical predator and the anxiety of public speaking, between an actual abyss and the risk of starting a new business. What was once a protector has now become a jailer, keeping us confined within artificial comfort zones. One of the most fascinating aspects of fear is its nature as inverted faith. Think about it for a moment. When you fear something intensely, what are you really doing? You are placing your faith, your absolute belief, in the possibility of something undesirable manifesting. You are investing energy, attention, and emotion into a negative outcome, reinforcing its presence in your reality. This is the same mechanism through which positive manifestation works. The only difference is the direction in which it operates. Whether we are manifesting our greatest dreams or our deepest anxieties, the universal principles remain the same. Energy follows focus. When we experience fear, our energetic field vibrates at a specific frequency. And according to universal laws, the universe does not differentiate between fear and positive desire. It simply responds to the intensity and clarity of fear is perhaps the most fundamental and primitive emotion we experience as human beings. It is deeply ingrained in the very fabric of our brains, specifically within the amygdala, that ancient structure of our neural system that has ensured our survival as a species for millennia. From an evolutionary perspective, fear was absolutely essential. It alerted us to predators, kept us away from dangerous heights, and made us cautious about the unknown. For thousands of years, fear was our silent ally, the unseen guardian whispering in our ears, "Be careful. This is not safe." But here's where the paradox begins. What once protected us has now become our prison. In the modern world, where we rarely face immediate physical threats, fear has mutated. It no longer safeguards us from wild beasts or physical danger. Instead, it shields us from growth, from expansion, from new experiences, and from vulnerability itself. And this is where the first great contradiction arises. That which evolved to keep us alive is now preventing us from truly living. Yet this modern fear is not as straightforward as it seems. It operates on much subtler and more complex levels. It functions almost like a form of reverse faith. Think about it. Fear, at its core, is a belief, a deeply held certainty in something undesirable happening. It is believing with absolute conviction that something bad will come to pass, just as others believe in their dreams and aspirations. This is a revelation that can change everything. Fear and positive manifestation operate under the same universal principles, only in opposite directions. When we delve into the energetic nature of reality, we understand that everything around us is composed of vibrational fields. Our thoughts, and even more powerfully, our emotions, emit specific frequencies that interact with the universal energetic field. And fear, being one of the most intense emotions we can experience, acts as a powerful beacon of attraction. It is an amplifier, broadcasting signals that shape our reality, whether we are conscious of it or not. The journey we are about to embark on together is not just about overcoming or suppressing fear. That would be a superficial approach. Instead, we are going to explore the fundamental secret to transforming our relationship with fear, how to transmute it into a constructive force, and more importantly, how to transcend it completely. Once we grasp the true nature of fear, we will unlock a level of inner freedom that many people don't even realize is possible. Get ready for a transformational experience, one that will permanently shift the way you perceive not just fear, but reality itself. Because the true key to living without fear is not found in fighting against it. It is found in understanding its deepest nature and our connection to the universe. Once we embrace this essential understanding, a world of unlimited possibilities will unfold before us. To truly free ourselves from fear, we must first explore its origins. Fear, this ancient companion of our existence, has roots that stretch back to the very dawn of human evolution. It emerged as a defense mechanism, a built-in alarm system that kept our ancestors alive in a world filled with tangible dangers. When a predator lurked nearby or a storm threatened destruction, fear would instantly trigger our fight-or-flight response, preparing our bodies for immediate survival. This system worked brilliantly for millennia. The problem arises when we carry this same mechanism into the modern world, a world where life-threatening dangers are rare, yet the fear response remains intact. The primitive mind, designed to react to lions and natural disasters, does not distinguish between a physical predator and the anxiety of public speaking, between an actual abyss and the risk of starting a new business. What was once a protector has now become a jailer, keeping us confined within artificial comfort zones. One of the most fascinating aspects of fear is its nature as inverted faith. Think about it for a moment. When you fear something intensely, what are you really doing? You are placing your faith, your absolute belief, in the possibility of something undesirable manifesting. You are investing energy, attention, and emotion into a negative outcome, reinforcing its presence in your reality. This is the same mechanism through which positive manifestation works. The only difference is the direction in which it operates. Whether we are manifesting our greatest dreams or our deepest anxieties, the universal principles remain the same. Energy follows focus. When we experience fear, Our energetic field vibrates at a specific frequency, and according to universal laws, the universe does not differentiate between fear and positive desire. It simply responds to the intensity and clarity of our energetic signals. And here lies a profound revelation. Fear can be one of the most powerful forces of manifestation. Why? Because it is often charged with immense emotional intensity. This understanding leads us to one of the most mind-bending paradoxes of all. What we fear the most tends to materialize in our lives, not because some malevolent force is working against us, but because our fear itself acts as an incredibly powerful, energetic magnet. It is as if the universe interprets our constant worry as a clear request. This is important to me. This occupies my mental and emotional space. This is what I am focused on. When fear dominates our consciousness, we unknowingly begin to filter reality, searching for confirmation of our deepest anxieties. Our perception becomes selective, honing in on signals that validate our fears while disregarding any evidence that contradicts them. This perceptual filter forces us into a frequency of fear, creating a self-reinforcing cycle that feeds itself, amplifies, and becomes stronger over time. Fear is not just a fleeting state of mind or a momentary emotional reaction. It is a sustained vibrational state, one that emits specific signals into the universal field, attracting experiences that resonate with that particular frequency. Understanding this concept liberates us from the limited belief that fear is something we must fight or suppress. Fear is not an enemy to be conquered. It is an inherent part of our biological structure and human experience. The true secret to overcoming fear lies not in resisting or eradicating it, but in transforming our relationship with it, understanding it fully, and ultimately transmuting it into a different form of energy. Only when we recognize that fear operates as a powerful, inverted creator can we begin to use that same power to manifest what we truly desire instead of unconsciously attracting what we fear. The root of fear, the illusion of duality. To fully unravel the secret of living beyond fear, we must examine one of the deepest illusions embedded in human consciousness: duality. From an early age, we are conditioned to perceive the world through opposing pairs: light and darkness, good and evil, success and failure, love and hatred. This dualistic perception has led us to believe that there are opposing forces locked in a constant battle, and that we must align ourselves with the positive side in order to thrive. At the core of this belief system lies the very foundation of fear, the idea that something bad can happen to us, that there is an external threat we must avoid at all costs. However, at a deeper level of reality, this separation is nothing more than an illusion. There are no truly opposing forces in the universe, only different expressions of the same fundamental energy. And here lies a liberating truth that will forever change your relationship with fear. There is only one force. Carl Jung, in his profound exploration of the human psyche, identified that what we fear most often resides in what he called the shadow, those parts of ourselves that we have rejected, suppressed, or denied. Jung understood that integration, not elimination, of these shadow aspects was the path to psychological wholeness. This Jungian insight aligns perfectly with the deepest spiritual truth. Duality is an illusion, created by a fragmented perception of reality. When we operate from this limited dualistic viewpoint, we become trapped in a perpetual cycle. The fear that something bad might happen. This fear creates the perfect vibrational match for attracting exactly what we seek to avoid. Not because a malevolent force is working against us, but because our focused attention on fear sends a clear message to the universal field. This is important to me. This occupies my mental and emotional space. This is what I am focused on. Transcending fear, the power of unified perception. A unified perception allows us to transcend fear because it dissolves the very premise upon which fear is built, the illusion of separation. When we understand that we are individualized expressions of the same universal consciousness, fear loses its foundation. There is no other to defend against. There is no opposing force that can act against us. From this elevated perspective, we realize that there is no truly wrong path in absolute terms. What we perceive as detours or mistakes are merely different expressions of the same universal journey. This understanding frees us from the fear of making the wrong choice or taking the wrong path. Every experience, whether pleasurable or challenging, is an integral part of a coherent, unfolding process. When we view the universe through the lens of unity, what once seemed like threats transform into opportunities for growth. Apparent obstacles reveal themselves as teachers, and what we once feared becomes a gateway to our expansion. This unified vision is not just an abstract philosophical concept. It is a lived experience, one that fundamentally alters our reality, moment by moment. Understanding the nature of fear and the fundamental unity of reality is essential. However, knowledge alone is not enough. We need practical tools to transform this understanding into lived experience. This is where the concept of emotional alchemy comes in, the ability to transmute fear into courage. This transformation is not just a poetic metaphor. It is a real, energetic process that we can learn to master. The first thing we must understand is that fear and courage are not opposites. Rather, they are the same energy expressed at different vibrational frequencies. This realization is incredibly liberating because it means we don't need to eliminate fear or wait for it to disappear before acting bravely. Instead, we can transform that energy, redirect it, and elevate its frequency. The key to this transformation lies in one fundamental element: focus. Our energy flows wherever we direct our attention. When we are in a state of fear, our attention becomes fixated on what could go wrong, on potential threats and possible dangers. This sustained focus on fear reinforces its vibration, creating a self-perpetuating cycle that keeps us stuck. Redirecting attention to shift energy. To transform fear into courage, we must consciously shift our focus. This does not mean denying fear or pretending it doesn't exist. Instead, it means redirecting our attention toward aspects of the situation that generate a different vibration. Rather than being consumed by worst-case scenarios, we can shift our focus to opportunities for growth hidden within the challenge, our inner resources, the strengths we've cultivated over time, past victories, moments when we overcame similar obstacles. By making this shift, we reprogram our perception and begin altering our emotional response. The role of the nervous system in emotional alchemy. Our nervous system plays a crucial role in this process of transformation. When we experience fear, our body responds with a set of automatic physiological reactions: increased heart rate, rapid breathing, a surge of adrenaline. But here's something fascinating. These same physiological responses occur when we feel excitement or positive anticipation. The difference lies not in the physical reaction itself, but in how we interpret it. We can train our minds to reframe these sensations, to see them not as signals of danger, but as signs of activation, as the body's way of preparing us for action. This is like rewiring our internal software to assign a new meaning to the same physical signals. The power of action, fear, transforms through movement. However, the true alchemy of fear happens through action. Real courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act despite feeling fear. Every time we step forward while afraid, we are training our nervous system to associate those sensations with progress rather than paralysis. Each act of courage, no matter how small, recalibrates our system. We begin to show ourselves, on a deep level, that we can feel fear and still succeed. When you speak up for yourself, despite feeling nervous, you rewire your mind. When you take a step toward a goal that scares you, you shift your energy. When you refuse to let fear dictate your choices, you elevate the vibration of that energy. This is how fear is transmuted into the energy of achievement, growth, and power. As we practice this emotional alchemy, something extraordinary happens. The energy that once manifested as fear now transforms into clarity and discernment. We do not eliminate the energy, we elevate it. The same force that once paralyzed us now propels us forward with determination and purpose. A moment of reflection. I want to pause here and invite you to deeply connect with this truth. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a moment and recall a situation where fear held you back. Now, imagine facing that fear with power, not by erasing it, but by transforming it. Imagine feeling that surge of energy as motivation instead of hesitation. Feel the shift. Now, I invite you to write these powerful words in the comments. I transform fear into power. By writing this, you are not just affirming an idea. You are activating a shift within yourself. You are choosing to reclaim your energy and direct it toward your highest potential. This is the true essence of emotional alchemy. You are not merely affirming this truth. You are declaring your commitment to this alchemical process within your own life. The transmutation of fear into courage naturally leads us to the next level of personal evolution, self-mastery. This concept goes far beyond simply controlling fear. It involves developing a sovereign relationship with all our emotions, thoughts, and states of consciousness. It is the art of governing our inner world with the same skill and precision that a master craftsman uses to handle their tools. At the heart of self-mastery, we find a fundamental element: self-confidence. This is not the superficial confidence that is displayed socially, but rather a profound inner certainty that arises from a relationship of honesty and respect with oneself. We could define it as the internal conviction that no matter what happens, we will be capable of responding appropriately. Self-confidence functions as a currency in our internal economy. When we possess enough self-confidence, we can purchase higher emotional states, including courage. However, unlike physical money, this currency is not accumulated by chance or inheritance. It is generated through a specific mechanism: the fulfillment of our personal commitments. Every time we make a promise to ourselves and keep it, we deposit a small amount into our self-confidence account. It can be something as simple as committing to waking up at a specific time, practicing a daily ritual, or abstaining from a harmful habit. The magnitude of the commitment is not as important as the consistency in fulfilling it. On the other hand, every time we break a promise we made to ourselves, we make a withdrawal from that account. With enough withdrawals, we reach emotional bankruptcy, a state where we no longer trust our own word. At that point, manifesting any desired reality becomes extremely difficult because we no longer truly believe in our ability to create or sustain it. The relationship between self-confidence and fear is inversely proportional. The greater our self-confidence, the less power fear has over us. This happens because self-confidence provides us with the inner security that regardless of what happens, we will be able to handle it. This security neutralizes the basic premise of fear, the sensation that something bad will overwhelm us. Another critical aspect of self-mastery is the development of self-validation. Many of us rely excessively on external validation, seeking approval, recognition, or confirmation from others. This dependency makes us vulnerable to fear because it places our sense of worth and security in the hands of others. Self-validation is about cultivating unconditional self-acceptance. This means assuming that we are the primary creators of our experience, not because everything is our fault, but because recognizing our creative role empowers us to make changes. When we blame external circumstances for our internal state, we relinquish our power and become subject to fear. There is a direct relationship between self-mastery and the mastery of external reality. The same laws that govern manifestation in the external world operate within our internal universe. By learning to consciously direct our attention, manage our emotional states, and fulfill our internal commitments, we are developing the very same skills necessary to consciously manifest in the external world. Self-mastery represents the turning point where we transition from being reactive to life to becoming conscious creators of our experience. It is the bridge between fear and freedom, between limitation and the infinite expansion of our possibilities. To integrate everything we have explored so far, we need concrete practices that allow us to live from a state of inner freedom, beyond the control of fear. These practices are not mere superficial techniques, but transformative tools that, when applied consistently, gradually reconfigure our relationship with reality. The fundamental practice from which all others derive is the cultivation of inner stillness. In a world that values constant activity and relentless productivity, stillness has become a scarce treasure. However, it is precisely in that space of silence where we can transcend duality and connect with our higher consciousness. Daily meditation, even if we start with just 5 minutes, creates a space where we can observe our thoughts and emotions without completely identifying with them. This detached observation is the first step toward freeing ourselves from the grip of fear. When we can see fear as a passing wave in our consciousness, rather than identifying ourselves as someone who has fear, we begin to free ourselves from its influence. While meditating, we can consciously practice expanding our energetic field. We visualize our energy extending beyond the limits of our physical body, merging with the universal field. This practice directly counteracts the energetic contraction that fear produces and helps us experience the essential interconnectedness with all that exists. Complementary to stillness is the practice of conscious presence in daily life. This involves bringing our full awareness to ordinary activities: eating, walking, conversing, working. The more we refine our ability to remain present, the less susceptible we become to unconscious emotional reactions. Presence acts as a stabilizing force, grounding us in the here and now, rather than allowing us to be swept away by fears of the past or anxieties about the future. By anchoring ourselves in presence and cultivating inner stillness, we create the ideal conditions for self-mastery to flourish. The journey from fear to courage, from reactivity to conscious creation, is not a theoretical endeavor. It is a lived experience, a path that unfolds with each moment of awareness, each commitment fulfilled, and each step taken toward a more empowered existence. When we are truly present, fear loses its power. Fear only exists when it projects us into an imagined future filled with uncertainty, or when it anchors us in a painful past that no longer exists. But presence, the act of fully immersing ourselves in the now, brings us back to the only moment where we truly have power: the present. One particularly powerful practice for maintaining a higher perspective in challenging situations is what we might call the cosmic observer. Imagine stepping outside of yourself and seeing your current life from a vastly broader perspective, as if you were floating thousands of miles above the earth, looking down at the entirety of your existence. From that altitude, the problems that once seemed overwhelming are suddenly revealed in their true nature: temporary, relative, and small in the grand scale of existence. Fear thrives in the narrow confines of immediate experience. But when we expand our awareness, when we zoom out and view life from a cosmic perspective, fear shrinks. It no longer dominates us because we recognize that every challenge, every difficulty is just a passing moment in a much larger journey. The universe operates on a scale far beyond our current understanding, and by aligning ourselves with that vast intelligence, we can navigate life with a sense of peace and trust. Another essential practice for transcending fear is detachment from specific outcomes. When we rigidly attach ourselves to a single vision of how things must unfold, we create fertile ground for fear to grow. Why? Because any deviation from our expectations then feels like a threat. If we are absolutely convinced that life must follow a particular script, any disruption to that script brings anxiety, frustration, and doubt. But practicing detachment does not mean giving up on our desires or abandoning our intentions. Rather, it means holding them lightly, with confidence in the flow of life. It means being open to the possibility that the universe might have something even greater in store for us, something beyond what our limited human minds can conceive. True detachment is trusting in the intelligence of existence itself, recognizing that there is a force guiding all things, including us. This leads us to the next crucial practice: commitment to truth. To live beyond fear, we must be willing to see reality as it is, without distortion or denial. Fear thrives in the shadows of unconsciousness and avoidance. The more we resist seeing the truth about ourselves, our patterns, or the world around us, the more power fear gains. But when we make a conscious decision to face reality, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, we create the conditions for authentic transformation. We take back control of our inner world. We stop running from the truth and start using it as a tool for growth. One simple yet powerful way to maintain a high vibration throughout the day is by setting regular reminders, small yet meaningful moments that bring us back to our center. These reminders can be as simple as an alarm on your phone that prompts you to take a deep breath and reconnect with your essence. They can be affirmations strategically placed in your environment, words of power that remind you of your true, limitless nature beyond fear and limitation. We have now explored the nature of fear from multiple angles, from its evolutionary origins to the practices that allow us to transcend it. With all these insights integrated, we can now understand one essential truth: all genuine manifestation begins with the release of fear. As long as we remain trapped in a vibration of fear, even our most sincere attempts to create the life we desire will be sabotaged at their root. It's like trying to light a fire with wet wood. You may know the technique perfectly, but if the essential element is not in the right condition, the fire simply won't ignite. Releasing fear is not a one-time achievement. It is not a destination that we reach and never leave. Instead, it is a state of awareness that we return to again and again. It is a daily practice, a moment-by-moment commitment. There will be days when you flow effortlessly in that state of freedom, and there will be days when you have to consciously remind yourself of your true nature. What matters is not perfection, but consistency. Each time you transform fear into courage, each time you remain present in the face of discomfort, each time you honor your inner commitments, you strengthen your ability to live from a higher consciousness. Remember this always. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is simply energy, an energy that can be transmuted. It does not define who you are. It is merely a fleeting experience in the vast ocean of your consciousness. Your true essence exists beyond fear and beyond all dualities that your limited perspective perceives. Now imagine what it would feel like to live from that space of absolute freedom. Imagine the quality of your relationships, the nature of your creative work, the experience of your physical body, when they are no longer filtered through the distorting lens of fear. That life is not an unattainable ideal. It is your natural state, your birthright as an individual expression of universal consciousness. The secret to living without fear has always been within you. It is not about acquiring something new, but rather about remembering something your soul has always known. I invite you to begin, right now, in this very moment, to reclaim the freedom that is already yours. Remember, there is only one true force in the universe, and there is nothing to fear. What once protected you and now seems to limit you can become your greatest ally, once you fully understand it and transform it. Fear, when transmuted, becomes discernment. It becomes clear intuition. It becomes decisive action. This is not the end of the path. It is the beginning of an entirely new way of existing in this world. There is nothing to fear. And since you are still here, subscribe now so we can continue this journey together.